was appointed the 17th president of my beloved alma mater, Howard University, in 2014, and was named a Distinguished Charles R. Drew Professor of Surgery by the Board of Trustees in 2020. He previously served in numerous capacities within the university, including Provost and Chief Academic Officer. Today, he continues to perform in the operating room and teach in the classroom. As president, Dr. Frederick has advanced Howard University's commitment to student opportunity, academic innovation, public service, and fiscal stability. He has also pursued initiatives to streamline and strengthen university operations. In addition, he has overseen a series of reform efforts, including the expansion of academic offerings, establishing innovative programs to support student success, and the modernization of university facilities. Dr. Frederick matriculated to Howard in 1988 to pursue a BSMD dual degree program. He completed the requirements for both degrees in 6 years, allowing him to earn his Bachelor of Science degree and his medical degree by the age of 22. He also earned, yes, it's okay to clap. He also earned a Master of Business Administration from Howard University School of Business in 2011. Dr. Frederick is a widely recognized expert on disparities in healthcare and medical education. His medical research focuses on narrowing racial, ethnic, and gender disparities in cancer care outcomes, especially in relation to gastrointestinal cancers. He also devotes his time to writing and speaking on salient topics in higher education and the underrepresentation of African Americans in healthcare. Thank you for doing that. Dr. Frederick has received various awards honoring his scholarship, service, and community impact, including the Educator Award by the Lowell Howard Fund Foundation, Inc., the Distinguished Alumnus Award from the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center, the Diaspora Public Diplomacy Leadership Award by the Embassy of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and a Doctor of Science honorary degree from the University of the West Indies. He has also been inducted as a member into the American College of Surgeons, Academy of Master Surgeon Educators, and elected to the National Academy of Medicine. In March 2022, Dr. Frederick received Trinidad and Tobago's highest honor, the Order of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Dr. Frederick also serves on numerous boards and committees. He was appointed to the Board of Directors of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the American Cancer Society, as well as Humana Inc. and Insulet Corporation. Dr. Frederick is a member of surgical and medical associations, including the American Surgical Association and the American College of Surgeons. In January 2017, the Federal Reserve System Board of Governors elected Dr. Frederick to the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond. Please join our hands together as we warmly welcome Dr. Wade
Thank you very much for that kind introduction, Dr. Webb. I appreciate it. I also want to recognize His Excellency the Ambassador, his wife, Reverend Harmon. Thanks for hosting us today. And let's give a round of applause for the prior speakers. I think they were all excellent. Since they took a tact of bringing their religious perspectives to this, my remarks are probably going to be considered extremely political. That's not going to help that's not going to help the rumor mill. but I think it's appropriate for the circumstances that we're in, and I'll explain that. I actually grew up as an altar boy in an Anglican church, and so the other thing that I recognize is that it's 2:22, and this was scheduled to finish at 2:30. So I will also try to make sure that we stay on time as well. What does it mean to be a republic? And a republic is based on a Latin phrase which basically states that political power rests with the public and their representatives, in contrast to a monarchy. And so Trinidad and Tobago being a republic is extremely important in terms of how we conduct our affairs and how we take care of our citizens. And that primary principle that we must govern ourselves because the political power rests with us is extremely important. My father was born on Independence Day, August 31st, and ended up being a mountain branch police officer. He would die a month shy of my 3rd birthday, and so one of the few images that I have of him is on a white horse as he was part of the Mountain Branch Police Service in the Independence Day parade. A picture that I still look upon with great pride and great reverence. So a few years ago, I had the opportunity to go visit Trinidad and Tobago and actually attend the Independence Day parade for the first time. And I must admit, I was so overwhelmed with joy as I looked at our fellow citizens celebrate our country's independence. The things about it that humbled me were the fact that so many people from so many walks of life were represented. But just as importantly, I was humbled by the fact that so many people took the time to recognize that this small nation of 1.3 million people, made up of people from so many different backgrounds, races, ethnicities, could come together in such a way. A few months ago, I was invited to Trinidad and Tobago to give the graduation speech at Queen's Royal College. I took a lot of heckling, as you can imagine, being St. Mary's old boy. None of the people who introduced me or spoke before me would refer to the fact that I attended St. Mary's. They referred to me as the other college. Having said that, though, it was important for me to be there because I also had an opportunity to participate in CARICOM 50. And again, seeing the different talents and the different values of the various nations of CARICOM was extremely important. But a couple of things struck me while I was there, and so I would like to touch on a few of those. There's no doubt that Trinidad and Tobago as a country faces grave challenges today. Let us make no mistake about that. We hear about crime, a lot of which is probably stimulated by the economy and poverty, poor job opportunities. We have infrastructure challenges. We have a financial system that's not always as reliable or equitable. And we certainly have an education system that is uneven, a judicial system that probably moves a bit too slowly, and a healthcare system that certainly requires a lot of an influx of investment. However, there are two things that represent part of what is good about why we're there. One is our culture. And I define culture as people and tolerated behavior. On the people aspect of our culture, we have a very diverse people with wide resources, very talented, well educated, who represent an opportunity in so many ways as solutions for what may plague us. One part of our culture, though, is the tolerated behavior. And that is one that we, as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, must take a greater interest in. What is our tolerated behavior? To this day, anyone older than I am, who is a friend of my parents, still gets greeted by me as uncle and auntie. My kids do it. And it's simple things like this that I think are critical for how we influence the tolerated behavior of the country in which we live. We see young people today who we sometimes want to look upon and frown upon, but the reality is that a lot of times they're actually mimicking us. And yes, our kids mimic us in ways seen and unseen. My son attends Duke University, where he plays soccer on a scholarship. He'll be playing at 4 o'clock this afternoon, so if you guys see me running out of here, it's going to be It was supposed to be yesterday, and because the rain got postponed today, so I was actually supposed to be on the plane yesterday to go see him play. Every day before a game, so around 3 o'clock, he will send me a picture of his wrist in which he will draw a cross, and in Roman numerals he'll write his sister's birthday. He does that because she tore her ACL last year, just before he started playing his first game of his collegiate career. And he puts a cross because every Sunday, and during the week apparently, he goes to chapel. A behavior that I was always concerned about, a habit that I was very concerned about. I grew up as an altar boy, and I was very concerned that we had brought our kids up in a fast-paced circumstance in which I was extremely busy and did not take them to church every day. When they did their confirmation classes at a Catholic church, I attended with the intent to potentially convert to Catholicism, so I attended with them. Subsequent to that, I would get up some mornings at 6 a.m. and go to church on my way to work almost every single day. I would not take them with me. But children imitate what they see. And so we have a responsibility as well as adults for the young people in our country to make sure that they are seeing behaviors from us that they will imitate. Because if you had told me that my son would go to chapel that often while he was in college, I would have lost that bet. But he does. And that's because he saw something, he sees something, and therefore he wants to make sure that he imitates that something. And so I think it's important. The second thing that we must do is we must increase our national pride. We spend a lot of time talking about the woes upon us in our great country, but we spend very little time celebrating the things that we should be proud of in the people who we should celebrate. And I want to emphasize that in particular, because I have to admit that this is one of the things that troubles me probably more than any other single experience that I've had with respect to my engagement with Trinidad and Tobago. Our willingness to detract from our heroes, all the people who have great successes, who come from our country, often bothers me. And I wonder where it comes from. Why are we so unwilling to praise and embrace those who have succeeded? We hear about our athletes. We hear about the young men and women who do well in college and university. We hear about our cultural icons. But just as quickly as one of them is mentioned, we are very, very quick to mention what we don't like about them, what they don't do well, instead of taking an opportunity to really uplift them. And I think this is important, and I'll tell you a little story of why I feel so strongly about this. And I'll use this to introduce the next part of my talk, which is about solutions for what we all can do. We need a strong press to hold all of the legislative branches of government, all the executive branches of government to task. You need a strong press. So I told you I was in Trinidad and Tobago to give a graduation speech at QRC. I gave the speech, I got off the podium, ceremony ended, and I went over to my mom and grandmother. My grandmother is 99, she came out to that event. I went over to both of them, and a reporter came over from the Express, or Guardian, I'm not sure, one of the two, and said, I would like to interview you about the recent honorary degree you gave to the Prime Minister. I think it's about the controversy regarding the recent honorary degree. I said, there's no controversy, but I'm happy to do the interview. She took a picture of my mother and grandmother with me and with the Minister of Education, who happened to be here. I went to the side and gave the interview. The next day, the story in the paper read as follows. Dr. Frederick, who attended a Rima North Secondary. Why did she put that in? Because the day before, when I landed in Trinidad and Tobago, I went to Rima North Secondary because I had donated equipment to them, and I went to visit the football team. Right? So I will tell you that is intellectual laziness to start with. Second, one of the senators, who I'm familiar with, and I'll leave his name unmentioned, had mentioned that he knows me so well that he calls me Fredo by my nickname. I don't know of anybody here who calls me Fredo. I think all of you know my nickname is Freddie. The reporter never asked a single question about that. The reporter then went on to say that she asked me about it, and I said to her, I got more emails that were negative about awarding President Biden an honorary degree than I did about Prime Minister Rawley. I said, but for some reason, nobody's asking me questions about that. She never once mentioned that I gave the graduation speech at QRC, and she never once mentioned anything about the graduation. Here we are in a country where we talk about crime all the time. We're concerned about young men of African descent who were graduating with honors, extremely brilliant, and we do not identify even in a sentence in an article about them. The article was all about me giving an honorary degree that people thought was controversial. That was not a press. That is upholding the standards to hold account the people and to be able to provide the people of Trinidad and Tobago insight. In other words, you have no interest in telling a story of joy, of success. I met young men in there with aspirations that go way beyond what I would ever achieve in this life. And not one of them was interviewed to tell their story. That is not a press. And therefore, if that press does not function well, we do not tell our story well, we do not hold to account the people that should be held to account, so that political power rests with all of us. We must volunteer. Volunteerism is extremely important. I am in Trinidad and Tobago almost every single month. I'm there because I love doubles. The KFC doesn't taste like it tastes anywhere else. Although I don't partake for the sake of my own health. But one of the primary reasons I'm there is to see my mother and grandmother and to volunteer. I will go to Trinidad and Tobago on October 2nd, and between October 2nd and October 5th, I will visit no less than 6 schools in both Trinidad and Tobago to talk to students and mentor them about career advice, about applying to universities, and about professional development. While at St. Mary's in the afternoon, I'll meet with all the teachers. The principal is going to give a half day, and I'm going to talk to all of the teachers about professional development and education, how to meet the challenges that are there. My wife and I had the opportunity a few years back to renovate the entire physics labs at St. Mary's College, and I took my kids and they dedicated it with a plaque in my kids' name, because again, I want my kids to see what it is we do, so that they understand their responsibility as well as to give back. And I think it's extremely important. When I gave the graduation speech at QRC, I committed to paying to renovate the nets for cricket so that they could have the appropriate type of facility. St. Mary's College built a multi-million-dollar facility, indoor air conditioned for cricket.
Wow.
I'm a St. Mary's College graduate. I can simply sit down and say, good, the work is done. The nets at QRC are in disarray. And that is a brother's school, and although I did not attend, my youngest brother did, and my mother-in-law taught there, and that might be more the impetus for that gift. But the point is we all have a responsibility to participate and to ensure that we give back to these institutions so that they can be as strong as they can be. And why do I want to emphasize that? My educational background and foundation at St. Mary's College, in my humble opinion, was the single most important thing in my academic success, by far. The education that I received there was bar none. I was able to do 2 years undergrad, 4 years med school, train at Harvard University in general surgery, go to MD Anderson, and and spend 4 years there doing a fellowship, be on the staff at Baylor, on the faculty at Baylor and at the University of Texas, MD Anderson, and come back to Howard after going to University of Connecticut. And I am yet to feel inadequate in any way, shape, or form about the foundation of that. I also have sickle cell, and one of the things I spoke about was the healthcare system. A few years ago, the Prime Minister put me on a task force to review the healthcare system. I had the opportunity to visit every single hospital in the public sector in both Trinidad and Tobago. Every single one. I had the opportunity to go to the main area where all of the pharmaceutical drugs come in and then get distributed. I saw the place inside out. I spent months flying back and forth while being Howard's president to make sure that I participated in that task. I mention that because, again, as we say in Trinidad, this is not hearsay. This is my own observation. I was born with sickle cell anemia. A year before I was born, Trinidad and Tobago began mandatory testing of every newborn for sickle cell. Again, the basis of my health and my ability to stand here today in front of you as a 52-year-old sufferer of sickle cell in relatively good health with type 1 diabetes, for which I read insulin pump, is because of the care that I received in those first 16 years of my life in Trinidad and Tobago. Wow. I have never to this day received a blood transfusion. Wow. Right? And I love the word. And that, in my opinion, has a lot to do with the dedication of physicians who were there, even with meager resources, making sure that I received the care that I had to receive. Now, the healthcare system has a lot that it needs to have done. The physical facilities need to be improved. We need to have a medical record that's electronic, so that as you move around the country and you go to the health center, you're not waiting for somebody to send records, etc. But the solution for that is a private-public partnership. The fact that the government of Trinidad and Tobago, given what the GDP is, attempts to provide free care for all citizens is unreasonable. Yes, while we were a younger country growing, I can understand that. But not in today's world and not in today's society. When you look at how rapidly technology changes, the ability to keep up with that, even in the US, the most resourced country in the world that spends 18% of its GDP on healthcare, the public system here is also broken. It is underfunded, right? And private hospitals here do very well. And so what we do need as one of those solutions is a private-public infrastructure that can bring telehealth. There's no reason for you to go to a clinic in San Grande and somebody tell you that you can't see a specialist. Not in 2023. We have the ability and technology to provide care in a different way, on a different platform. And I think we must take the opportunity to do that. I must ensure that we do that. You know, the system of the law is one that also intrigues me. And the reason I say that is because no country that is going to succeed and fulfill its potential does not abide by the rule of law. The rule of law is critical, but it does come back to culture and tolerated behavior. We all like to party, there's no doubt about it. My tickets are booked for Carnival, hotel is booked. But I'm always just a little bit touchy when I see people driving a car with an arm outside with a beer in their hand, and people around them say nothing. We accept a behavior of a broken rule of law without us ourselves emphasizing that that is not acceptable. And why is it not acceptable? Because the very same youth we are cynical about see that behavior, see other fellow adults who, while not doing it, condone it with your silent assent. And so the rule of law is important, but the judicial system cannot, the wheels of justice cannot turn as slowly as they do
because people then do not associate the crime with the punishment. And if you disassociate the crime with the punishment, there is no lesson in that for those who will not be offenders. And so we must have a rule of law that's still, and a respect for it, that still is based on the interest of you're innocent until proven guilty, but it cannot take us 5 years to prove you're innocent. You cannot sit in a jail cell for 5 years while innocent. That in and of itself is harmful. So again, we have an opportunity to make sure that we can abide by that rule of law. The next two things I will touch upon will be controversial. There's no doubt about this. But I feel strongly about them, and I think one of the things that we must do is encourage robust debate. One of them is I'm not sure that we have to do everything ourselves. There's a pride in the Caribbean about being independent. I saw that same pride in our HBCUs, the historically black colleges and universities, of which there are 100. We only represent 3% of the educational institutions in this country, but we provide about 22% of the degrees that are given to African Americans for STEM disciplines. So we punch well above our weight. But we stand so isolated and firm in our identity to not collaborate or be consumed by others. And that frustrates me. So I tried a couple of things because of my theory that the Caribbean is very similar. I went to all of the HBCU presidents and I said, send me 2 students from your school every summer, and we'll put them in a law school, pre-law school program, a pre-health sciences program, and now we have a pre-PhD program if you're interested in humanities. Why did I do that? Howard University sends more African Americans to medical school than anyone else in this country. We produce more black doctors than any other country. Yesterday, when I became president of Howard, we had only 5 HBCUs represented, including Howard, with 25 students. And I said to them, we have 100 HBCUs. Why do we only have 4 other HBCUs here? And I would suggest to you that it came from that situation where we don't collaborate. Today we have some 14 HBCUs represented at Harvard Medical School as a result of that program. Our ability to help these other institutions and to collaborate with them increases our power. Yes. So the other thing I would submit to you is I think we have to look at our CARICOM neighbors differently. And we have to start thinking about things that our founding father, Sir Dr. Eric Williams, spoke about. One of which is, do we need to have a combined economy with a common currency that allows for the freer movement of people that then bring commerce and opportunity in a different manner? And I think there's a lot of opportunity in that. The EU does it effectively, and you see what happened to Great Britain when they got out. There is opportunity, and I think it's something for us to debate, to have a conversation about, and to try to come to some compromise or solution that allows for it. To fly from one island in the Caribbean to another, it's easier to fly to Miami than to right? That shouldn't be the case. When you think of the types of produce that we're producing on these different islands and the ability to move goods from one place to another, we should not have a system that bars that simple movement of people on islands with less than 300,000 people. It makes no sense. And there's an opportunity for economic power. Let me tell you where that opportunity goes, since the ambassador did mention being a good ally to the US. There's no reason why in the Caribbean, where on some of the islands, including Trinidad and Tobago, you have a literacy rate in the mid-90%, that we should not be doing chip manufacturing on our islands. There's no reason for the US to be dependent on China in a crisis. And look at COVID. There's no reason why manufacturing plants that do other things should not be a strong ally for the US. We have a high literacy rate. We have young people that are very, very well prepared. In some cases, I would say over-educated for the jobs that are available. And we have to start thinking of how can we provide a technology opportunity in terms of the economy for them to be employed. And again, if we look at those issues on a collective basis, I think we have an opportunity to do that. Now, I said I was going to be a little political, a little controversial, and I know that's not going to stop the rumors, but for my wife's sake and her health, I want to be very clear. I am retired from the presidency of Howard University. I am President Emeritus. Everybody asks me what I'm going to do next. I'm going to stay retired. My goal is to continue to operate in medical missions. I will serve on a few corporate boards. I'm on 4 public corporate boards. I get an insight into what the economy looks like in Trinidad and Tobago by serving on Agostini Limited's board. And what I see is opportunity. And so I want to be very clear, this republic has a lot of opportunity. But that opportunity starts with each of us. And so what I would encourage you to do is that everything that may ail you or pain you about our great country must start with you as a solution. Everybody in here cannot go to Trinidad and Tobago every month. I understand that. But you can participate in so many ways, right? There are people in this room, such as Reginald Frederick, who provided for me included, support and mentorship when I came to this country and tried to navigate my academic career. Every one of us has the opportunity to do that. We are living in a country here in the US that is banning books from authors that are mile long, like Ta-Nehisi Coates, my good friend. And I say to audiences every time I speak about this country, if you're so mad about it, tell me when was the last time you went to a public library or an after-school program and volunteered to read to those same kids that you're worried about and not going to hear about those books. We are the solution.
Yes.
But we don't exercise our right. What we do is we exercise our ability to complain. And that is not the most important thing we should be exercising. We should be exercising our ability to act. And so what I would suggest to you is every time that you visit Trinidad and Tobago, visit a school you attended or a school that's close by to where you're staying, speak to this headmaster, ask to meet with 1 or 2 teachers, ask to meet with 1 or 2 pupils. Just 1 or 2 of those kids' lives you can change with one conversation. We're cynical about them. They're always in their phones. They don't want to listen to us. That is not true. I have 2 of them. They're 19 and 17. They want to hear from us. What they don't want is they don't want us to simply talk at them. They want us to listen as well. And if we listen and then provide advice, they will hear us. But we have an obligation to be there, to be present, and to help them provide. So I will close where I think almost everybody else who spoke today closed, and that's around our motto. There's an African proverb that exists in the airport in Johannesburg. The author is unknown, but I think it applies extremely well to what is going to continue to advance Trinidad and Tobago. If you want to go fast, you should go alone. If you want to go far, you should go together. And that going together in our motto ultimately is what binds us into being a very, very strong Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Frederick. My name is Willoughby Francis. Good afternoon, everyone.